The Sobeys Stadium had been a fortress of noise for an entire week. 10,000 fans packed the stands, waving Philippine flags, chanting Alex Eala's name, and creating an atmosphere that tournament director Carl Hale had called unheard of for an early round session. The energy was electric. The love was undeniable. The Eala-mania sweeping the tennis world had turned Toronto into a celebration of Filipino pride. Then came Monday night. The packed stands had thinned to a fraction of their former glory. The deafening chants were replaced by polite applause. The flags that had covered the stadium like a blanket of red, white, and blue were nowhere to be seen. And the fans who did show up were left fuming. The National Bank Open final had arrived. But without Alex Eala, it felt like nobody cared. "No Alex Eala, no fans?" the headlines screamed. And the backlash was immediate. Fans accused organizers of prioritizing ticket sales over match quality. The sparse schedule drew outrage across social media. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Just days earlier, Eala's first-round match had sold out in 30 minutes. Now, the tournament's biggest moments were playing to empty seats. This is the story of how Alexandra Eala's exit triggered a fan revolt that left the tennis establishment scrambling. To understand the backlash that followed Alexandra Eala's exit from the Canadian Open, you have to first understand the phenomenon she had created. The scenes at Sobeys Stadium during Eala's matches were unlike anything the tennis world had ever witnessed. Tickets for Eala's first match sold out in under 30 minutes. Tournament organizers were forced to move her from the 2,800-seat grandstand court to the 10,000-seat center court because she had probably sold upwards of 5,000 tickets. The Filipino community in Toronto, numbering over 270,000 according to the 2021 census, had turned out in full force. It's the kind of noise that accompanies a Grand Slam win, and this is just the second round here in Toronto, play-by-play announcer Mark Pecci said on the WTA Tour World Television feed. At least a dozen large Philippine flags were draped over railings in boxes and the upper deck. Fans wore T-shirts with the words, "Fight, Believe, Represent." Even the food offerings got into the spirit. One vendor changed a dish from chicken teriyaki to a Filipino chicken adobo rice bowl in honor of Eala playing. The tournament director, Carl Hale, was left stunned. "We've never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this type of effect," he told CBC News. A sold-out Wednesday night this early in the tournament is really unheard of. Eala's fans weren't just showing up, they were transforming the tournament. Coco Gauff, who faced Eala in Dubai earlier this year, recalled the atmosphere. "It felt like we were in the Philippines. I thought it was so fun to play in that crowd." Andy Roddick had called it Eala-mania, noting that when you have watch parties in arenas around your country for a fourth-round match, I'm in. The Filipino sensation had brought an entirely new demographic to tennis. Alex is putting the Filipino community on the map and giving inspiration to everyone. Warren Paul Katakutan, a Filipino from Toronto who designed custom T-shirts for his friends, told Yahoo Sports. Then came Eala's defeat. The Filipina sensation, who had won 8 consecutive matches and captured her first WTA title in Washington, fell to Belinda Bencic in a 6-4, 6-0 defeat that ended her historic run. The loss was a gut punch for the Filipino fans who had packed the stadium for every one of her matches. The aftermath was immediate and devastating for the tournament's attendance. The final sessions, which should have been the crown jewel of the event, were played to far fewer spectators. The electric atmosphere that had defined the early rounds had vanished. The chants of "Let's go Alex" that had echoed through the stadium were replaced by the uncomfortable silence of empty seats. And the fans who did show up were furious. The backlash against the tournament's scheduling reached a fever pitch. Barely any matches were played on Day 9 in Montreal, and Toronto's Day 10 schedule looked just as thin. Only 3 matches on the docket. 2 singles quarterfinals in the night session and a single doubles quarterfinal. Fans accused organizers of prioritizing ticket sales over match quality. They're milking as much money as they can by extending the tournament to 2 weeks. More tickets sold and fewer matches for said tickets, one fan complained. Another argued, 2-week Masters events are ridiculous, even when they're in the same city. This just makes it even worse. I've literally never heard from anyone who likes them. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Just days earlier, Eala's matches had been the hottest ticket in town. Now, the tournament's biggest moments were struggling to attract the same enthusiasm. The Eala effect had been a blessing, but it had also exposed a dependence that the tournament couldn't sustain. Without Eala, the fans simply weren't there. The empty stands at the Canadian Open final weren't just about Eala's absence. They were a testament to the scale of the phenomenon she had created. Eala's popularity wasn't just a passing fad. It was a revolution in how tennis fans engage with the sport. The Eala effect had been building for months. At the Australian Open, Eala's press conference had garnered over 127,000 views, dwarfing the 6,500 views of world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka's press conference. At the DC Open, Eala's final victory over Jessica Pegula had been watched by millions in the Philippines, where watch parties had been organized in arenas. At Wimbledon, the roar of the crowd when Eala upset defending champion Iga Swiatek had been heard around the world. But it was in Toronto that the phenomenon reached its peak. All the tournament directors are talking about it. Everybody in the industry is talking about it, Hale told CBC News. The Filipino community in Toronto had turned the Canadian Open into a celebration of Filipino pride. The moment Eala's match time was announced, tickets sold out. Volunteers who had been given tickets exchanged them for future sessions. Even the concession stands were selling Filipino favorites. Michaela Saturio, a Filipino Toronto resident, brought her father and aunt to the tournament because they didn't want to miss the opportunity to witness Eala in person. Many of the fans attending Eala's matches had never been to a tennis tournament before. They weren't tennis fans, they were Eala fans. And when Eala left, so did they. She's being branded as the next Pacquiao, said Danilo Baluyat, the executive director of Toronto's Taste of Manila event. The comparison to the boxing legend was inevitable. Just as Pacquiao had drawn massive Filipino crowds to arenas around the world, Eala was now doing the same, but in a sport that had never seen anything like it. But not everyone was thrilled about the transformation. The Eala-mania that had turned the Canadian Open into a spectacle had also sparked debate about tennis etiquette and the changing nature of the sport's fanbase. Coco Gauff, who had been on the receiving end of Eala's popularity, welcomed the new audience. I think, like I said before, the demographic that she brings to the sport of tennis is something we all benefit from, Gauff said in her post-match press conference. She described Eala as a great role model for people to look up to and praised her for remaining true to herself both on and off the court. But not everyone was as enthusiastic. Some online critics called Eala overhyped, arguing that her popularity had outpaced her achievements. The backlash against the Eala-mania was real, and it intensified after her defeat to Bencic, when the empty stands at the final session seemed to confirm the critics' fears. Without Eala, the tournament couldn't sustain its momentum. The debate highlighted a tension that Eala's rise had exposed. Tennis is a sport built on tradition, quiet during points, polite applause, respectful audiences. Eala's fans, many of whom were new to the sport, brought a different energy. They cheered during points. They waved flags. They created an atmosphere that felt more like a basketball game than a tennis match. And while some welcomed the change, others resisted it. Jimmy Connors, the 8-time Grand Slam champion, saw the potential. Let's talk about her fan base and the success she has had, and what she brings to the women's game is pretty amazing, Connors said on a podcast. I know what a crowd can do for you, and how it can push you to levels of play that you never thought you could reach yourself. The backlash against the Canadian Open's empty stands reveals something profound about the state of women's tennis. The sport has been searching for a new star, someone who can fill the void left by Serena Williams, someone who can capture the imagination of a global audience. In Alexandra Eala, they have found that star. But they have also discovered that her appeal doesn't automatically transfer to other players. When Eala exited the tournament, so did her fans. The final sessions played to far fewer spectators, and the tournament's scheduling came under heavy criticism. The Eala effect had been a blessing, but it had also been a curse. The tournament had become dependent on a single player's presence to draw crowds. But Eala's impact was undeniable. She had brought Eala-mania to the tournament. She had created an atmosphere that some compared to recent highlights like Bianca Andreescu's championship run in 2019 and Denis Shapovalov's stunner over Rafael Nadal in 2017. The difference, of course, was those achievements featured Canadians. Eala's success was built on the Filipino community's pride. As Eala leaves Toronto for the Cincinnati Open, the future of tennis's new fan base remains uncertain. The sport has found a player who can draw crowds, but it has also discovered that her appeal is unique. The question now is whether the Eala-mania can survive her absence, or whether it will take another Filipino sensation to bring the fans back.